What's up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I am without my co-host tonight, Ian Gibson. So hopefully, Ian's having a good time doing whatever he was doing. He didn't really tell me, so I think he's in Orlando for something. So this is week 5. This is the week 5 recap show. This was a monster slate, and the entire weekend didn't disappoint from Thursday. It was a Army ECU game all the way until last night late, some of those games. So it was such a tremendous slate of games. It's why we as college football fans love this sport. There's so much good games, rivalry games, conference games. It was such an amazing slate that you didn't really have a second to really separate. You just had to tune in all day. Saturday was just jam packed from beginning till end. There were multiple games going on all day long with just playoff implications. We had our slate here over here. Or I can't even point to it because my arm this way. Sorry, I'm so off with this always. But the slate was huge. You had LSU going on at the same time as Auburn, Texas A&M, as Tennessee, Mississippi State. Then you had Oregon, Penn State, Alabama, Georgia. You had the early games of USC, Illinois, Notre Dame, Arkansas. I mean, it was just like a great day all around. And then to top it off with, we'll talk about the beginner, my pick of Florida State getting beat by Virginia on Friday night, which I called literally to the exact detail of it being a shootout and Virginia being able to keep scoring at will because Florida State's defense is not as good as people thought it was. I think showing what happened in that Alabama-Georgia game showed that Alabama is a better offense than what they showed against Florida State, in the fact that they pretty much shot themselves in the foot, didn't make the plays that were there to be made. And so, if that game were to get replayed again, I would probably say I would believe that Alabama would win that game 80% of the time. Going into this game, I was not able to watch it live because I was hanging out with my buddies. But I kept track of the game as I was going to dinner, and then we went bowling afterwards. And then, I rewatched the condensed game today for the prep I did for the show. And it was largely exactly what I thought it was going to be. It really was, because Florida State, I knew, was going to be able to move the ball a decent amount. It wasn't like they were putting up massive drives or slow drives where they were just, the success rate was killing them, because honestly, they didn't really run the ball. Well, they did. I mean, I misspoke. Sorry. They didn't have drives where it was 5 and 10 yards here. It was a lot of explosives for the most part, which I thought it would be, honestly. I really thought that, they were going to be able to hit them deep, and Virginia was not going to be able to stop them, which they didn't. Virginia really didn't stop them for the most part. Virginia got that lucky interception deep in their Virginia's end zone, where Florida State was on the verge of scoring minimum 3 points, and they tipped the ball and then intercept it. And it's that was a huge difference in the game. Castellanos did not play great. He played good enough, and they probably good enough to win. But the mistakes he had, those turnovers, were pretty crucial. Like I said, that changed 7 points at minimum for Florida State there. Could have been a difference in the game. They missed a field goal that was relatively easy, not super easy, because it was still a 45-yarder, I think it was. Virginia, Morrison Morrison. I think that's his name. I'm gonna get it right. Morris. Sorry, Morris had a great game. Like he had a lot of turnovers, but he had 5 touchdowns, which like I think you will take the mistakes there. There were a couple of tip drill interceptions. You know, it was back and forth. It goes in overtime, and then Virginia scores there to go ahead, and then Florida State cannot convert. They throw an interception, or it just falls to the ground, or whatever. It didn't matter. They didn't catch it on 4th down, so the game was over. Credit to Virginia. They played extremely well in this game. Florida State was highly favored. I don't know what the spread was. I don't really care. But Florida State was the 8th ranked team in the country, and Virginia, plays their game. Morris can get down the field. He's very surgical. He knows how to find the open man. The receivers were doing enough to win. The run game for Virginia was really well. Taylor and Brown, again, had really good games. Taylor almost had 100 yards on the ground. Florida State is just not as good as they liked to have thought, because they thought that they were going to be, this team that just bludgeons people, because they were bludgeoning terrible teams the last couple of weeks. And like, it makes you soft. It really does, because it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this great. We're like scoring 70 points. We're having the highest rush total we've ever had. And I'm like, man, like, Gus has done that for eternity right now, like the last 20 years. Like, that's what he does. He beats up on inferior talented teams. And when it comes to teams that are just as talented as him, he struggles to beat them. And the play calling gets kind of, vanilla, not vanilla, but just not like mixed up enough, or just diverse enough to really make a difference. And so, they struggled to really try to get a lead there in the 4th quarter, to really in the second half. They were back and forth that whole second half. And then Virginia really just, they were the better team. And I'm amazed that Florida State, that the replay where Deuce Robinson had the ball and it like bounced around in his hand, it was definitely close. And like, but if you see it, like you see that freeze frame where it like he's juggling it as he's trying to get his feet down, and like before he goes out of bounds, it's moving in his hand. It's like literally out of his hands in the air, like before he firmly grasps it again. And he I don't know, just didn't have it. And so that then led to the 4th down where they didn't convert it. So, Castellanos, I don't know. He's a good like college quarterback, and he can make some plays, but he makes mistakes, and he's not super accurate. He was about just a little over 50% in this game. He did have 254 yards. A lot of it was on the like big plays from Deuce Robinson. And again, outside of that, not really much from anyone else. So, and some of the other ones were bigger plays too, but like he just didn't, I don't know. Like he's not impressing me. I know for whatever reason, he was on the Heisman list the last couple of weeks. And again, they played bad teams, so he puts up big stats. So everyone just buys into the hype. Their schedule for the rest of the way, Florida State has Miami next week, coming off a bye. Miami is. Then Pitt has 2 losses now, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. And I don't know if Gonzalez is coming in for Pitt's quarterback. I don't know if he got hurt in that game or if he just got benched. I wasn't able to follow from that. Then they play Stanford on the road, Wake Forest, which is Clemson, who knows what you're going to get there. Va Tech fired their coach. NC State is about the biggest challenge outside of Miami and Florida. So at this point, I'm thinking like at most maybe 2 losses left, maybe 2 or 3. So they're 8-4, whatever. I know their fans thought that they were going to go to the playoff, but I doubt it now. Like they'd have to definitely beat Miami and then hope that they win out, which I don't think is going to happen. I think they're going to get at least 1 or 2 more losses, maybe even more. We'll see. Okay, let's move on to TCU, Arizona State. I mean, Hoover looked good in this game at points, and then he just like imploded at the end. He had an interception and a fumble loss at their side of the ball, or their side of the 50, and like ASU just took advantage, and Levitt, made some huge plays with Tyson and some of the other receivers, and just kept them in this game. They were down 17-0 at this game in the beginning, and it looked like they were going to get blown out. And ASU just stuck with their game plan. They ran the ball really well. Brown is a really good running back. I mean, Tyson, like I already mentioned, this kid is amazing, like one of the best receivers in the country. Yeah, and I'm surprised because McAllister, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he got hurt or whatnot because he looks like he didn't even play. So, yeah, I don't remember hearing his name, and I was wondering. I'm like, where's McAllister? He had like a monster game against SMU, and then not in this game. But TCU wins 27-24. Arizona State really in play for Big 12 title implications. TCU still there as well, but going to have some work to do the rest of the way. I think TCU schedule-wise, Kansas State and Iowa State and BYU. So they got a couple of tough ones, and then some other relatively manageable games. So they have a tough road. As far as Arizona State, I think I heard that their road is pretty easy. Utah is going to be tough. Oh no, they got Texas Tech and Iowa State. Never mind. They got a decently tough road. So we'll see. They both have about the same chance to get to the Big 12 championship game, but I like Arizona State better because they have the leg up. They're still undefeated in conference play with that only loss coming to Mississippi State. Okay, next game we got is USC Illinois. Illinois was really dominating in this game because they were like having their success rate was through the roof. Like they had some explosives, but mainly what they were doing is just, churn and burn on the ground. And it was like 3rd and 4th down. They were getting to it like 3rd and 4th and short, and they were converting like every time. And so USC just couldn't get stops. Illinois was up by like 14 and several points in this game. I thought it was over when it was 14, like into the third. USC comes back. They're making a comeback. They have the ball late with like a minute something left, and Maeva hits Lemon for an amazing touchdown. But the problem is they left way too much time. Like it was like 1:55 or something like that left, and I was like, man, there's so much time here. It's only a 1-score game. It's a 1-point game at that point because I think they missed the 2-point conversion. And like if they had just bled the clock a little bit more, left like only like, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds left. I know it's tough to really say with a game where it's close like that, but at the same time, you got to manage that situation a little bit better. And, Altmaier is a good quarterback, and he played really well in this game. He had 328 yards, 20 of 26, 2 TDs. Maeva was great in this. Besides that one interception, he was 364 for 2 TDs as well. And, and Makai Lemon, dude, if you guys don't know who Makai Lemon is, this kid is a stud. 11 receptions, 151 yards, 2 TDs, just a monster game. Wayman Jordan had a huge game for USC as well. I believe he had a fumble loss too. So, This game was a good game, honestly. Like, it's a shame that one of them had to lose. Like Ian always mentions, this was 502 total yards to 490. It's very similar passing yards, an edge to rushing yards for Illinois. Similar first downs, 29 to 25. Third downs, above 50% for both of them. And USC was 4 of 5 on fourth down. So USC on conversions was 12 of 14. That is ridiculous. And they somehow lost this game. Amazing. Too many penalties again for USC. Got to take care of that stuff. Those 2 turnovers were pretty crucial. But Illinois, though, had some huge momentum shift fumbles themselves where they were on the verge of scoring twice and fumbled the ball, and USC was able to turn one of them into a field goal and the other one into a touchdown. So they got 10 points off those turnovers. So those were huge turnovers in the game, especially when they were going to score there for Illinois. Let's go to this next game. But, USC, there's a lot to play for. The season's not over. You can still get to the playoff with, with 1 or 2 losses here and a ton of chances to right the ship. They got Michigan at home next week, Notre Dame on the road, Nebraska on the road, and then Northwestern, Iowa, and then Oregon on the road is going to be a monster game, but we'll see if they're going to be good enough for that one. Okay, next game we got is Notre Dame, Arkansas. Notre Dame dominates Arkansas 56-13. This game was like somewhat kind of close really early, and then second quarter just boom, Notre Dame takes off, and Price and Love had monster games. Carr had a huge game. CJ Carr, dude, that first game against Miami was like kind of like a mouche-bouche as to how good he's going to be, because I saw it. I was like, man, this kid's pretty good for literally first start as a redshirt freshman in a hostile environment. Granted, Miami only is hostile when good teams are there, but hostile enough environment. And, he held his own and had that game, a 1-score game late, and had them with a chance to win it. But he looked great here. 22 of 30, 354 yards and 4 TDs. Price had 86 yards on the ground. Love had 2 TDs, 57 yards. Love had another 2 touchdowns in the passing game, 70 yards there. Price had 2 TDs total, 1 on the ground, 1 through the air. Just monster game for all involved. And then, lo and behold, look what Arkansas does. They fire their coach at the end of it. And you know what? That's what you do as a program that you're struggling so bad. And, you need to do something. You can't just continue to struggle forever. Florida needs to look at this really, really hard and be like, look, Arkansas fired their coach. Oklahoma State fired their coach. Oklahoma State had their coach for over 18 years, and they fired him. He was the most successful coach in the history of that program, and they still fired him for a terrible year, a terrible couple of years, the last 2 years. And then Vatek fired their coach. It's just, this is what you do. You have to, UCLA, another team we cover, you have to fire these coaches. You cannot just continue to struggle and to look bad week in, week out. I mean, Arkansas at least put up points most of these couple of weeks and lost very close. They got humiliated yesterday, but even they saw the writing on the wall with Pittman and got rid of him. Whew. Anyways, so glad you're all tuning in, because we got like 41 of y'all. Feels good to be able to do this show. I'm glad to have everybody in here talking ball, talking college football. If you want to comment, anyone on YouTube or Twitter or anything, comment. I can comment back. We have a little convo back and forth about ball. Okay. I got Louisville Pitt the next game. Pitt was kind of dominating this game Miller Moss threw a pick six, and I'm like, oh no, old Miller Moss showing his ways. But Miller Moss really hung tough in this game. Holstein got hurt, I think. I'm almost positive because that's why he didn't end up finishing this game, and Gonzalez came back. But he had 2 interceptions, kind of bad ones, and then Moss just led the comeback. They were up. Pitt was up 17-0. Then Pitt came back 17 straight. Then Pitt went 10 straight, and then Louisville just dominated the second half and won 34-27. I mean, this Louisville team is sneakily good because they're doing enough to win these games. They haven't really destroyed anyone yet. They've been kind of just, doing enough to win. I can see them really making a go for it in the ACC. They've got the next 2 weeks are really tough. Virginia at home and then Miami in Miami. So they'll show who they are in these next 2 weeks. After that, they have Clemson and SMU that are difficult games. So this Louisville team might be for real. We'll see next week for sure if they can, beat this 24th ranked Virginia team who's surprising everyone this year. But they didn't surprise me when I watched the film because they were definitely good enough to beat Florida State, and I could tell by the way Chandler Morris played. Okay, next game we've got is Ohio State, Washington. This was a very interesting game because this is the first time Ohio State has traveled to Washington to play, I believe, ever. And, a lot of their fans traveled. They were well represented there. You could see it on TV. And, it's Seattle. It's a great place to visit. There's a ton of stuff to do. We were there 3 years ago. We went there and then went to Vancouver where I proposed to my wife. So, it's a great place, the Pacific Northwest. And, but Washington, I thought was going to do a lot better. Damon Williams was accurate, but he wasn't putting up a ton of yards as far as being able to get down the field. Julian Sand necessarily wasn't either, but they were able to sustain drives better. Washington had a couple of drives that were getting close, but they just couldn't punch it in with touchdowns, had to result in field goals. And then one, they had a field goal that was a fake. That was a really poor attempt. And the tight end didn't even know that he was going out for a pass. And the kicker just had to throw it away. This Ohio State team really came to play. I mean, they were definitely way better defensively. Not that I didn't think they were going to be good defensively. I just thought Damon Williams was going to be able to have his way, and he really wasn't. Ohio State stayed patient. They made the plays defensively to keep him in check. He didn't really have a ton of yards on the ground, which, that could have been the difference in the game. Actually had negative yards because he was getting sacked a ton. And what I noticed in the game, he had very little actual QB rushes or QB draws or anything like that. He just kind of had to stay in the pocket. Ohio State played their gap positions, and they were really good at it. And, Washington really couldn't do much. And, credit to Ohio State. They didn't have the best offensive output in this game, but they did enough to win. Winning 24-6 on the road when you're traveling 1,500 miles, you're not probably going to have the best game. You're just going to do enough to win to get out of there and to move on. And Ohio State now for the rest of the year, they've got Illinois next for someone tough, Penn State, and then Michigan at the end of the year, and that's it. So they really have these 3 games next. If they only win one of them, they're probably minimum they may not be in the Big Ten championship, but if they win one of those 3 tough games, they're probably guaranteed a playoff spot. And they did the same thing last year, losing 2 games. So, right there, they just punched their ticket probably because of this win. So they really only need one win out of that Illinois, Penn State, Michigan, and I guarantee they beat Penn State at home. I have no doubt in my mind that they're better than Penn State, especially after that performance yesterday from Alar. And we'll talk about that later. But next game we got LSU Ole Miss. Man, these SEC rivalry games they're just so classic. They're like, there's something about them. I just love these games. It reminds me of just growing up and watching these games on like I think it was a Pilot or Jefferson Pilot or whatever, and like some of the old school networks that covered the games back in the day. God, that was such a like core memory of those games back in the day. But LSU wins this one, or sorry, Ole Miss wins this one 24-19. Just a awesome game by Trinidad Chambliss. The kid comes out of nowhere, played at Ferris State last year, comes in, like the Ole Miss takes a flyer on him. Austin Simmons gets hurt after the second game. Chambliss comes in, just dominates for 3 straight games. Now is just taking the world by storm. This kid is just phenomenal, and he puts up huge numbers every week, no matter who he's playing. For as far as rush yards for this game for him, he had only 71, but still he had close to 400 total yards. He did have an interception, but just a great game by him. He got lucky on one of the interceptions that he did throw. It was a defensive pass interference that got called back, but great game by him. This LSU offense is so underwhelming. Like, they were underwhelming against Florida. They were underwhelming against Clemson. They just have not been good all year, and it showed in this game. Because Ole Miss, their defense is okay. They gave up a lot of yards to Arkansas, but Ole Miss just dominated this game. But I really think it's LSU is not as good offensively. They were 2 of 11 on third down. They were 2 of 2 on fourth down. Ole Miss did have a ton of penalties, 14 for 109-yard penalty yards, which is brutal. Ole Miss, I don't know, man. This team has a lot going for them. You know, they're offensively, they're probably one of the best offenses in the country, and they're the most fun to watch. They really are. Like, you know, Chambliss is throwing the ball all over the place. You know, I know Florida fans are clamoring to hire Lane Kiffin, and Lane Kiffin keeps trolling them. But you know, Ole Miss somehow plays Washington State next week. That is so bizarre. But then they've got Georgia, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Florida. So, yeah, they've got 3 tough games the next couple of weeks. This Washington State game should be interesting, too. The Washington State's not very good this year, but it's just a different game, so we'll see there. But, yeah, Georgia and Oklahoma should be a huge game. Ole Miss is number 4 now. I'm amazed that they're number 4. That is, I mean, good for them. I'm not, like, surprised. They've beaten some good teams. It's just, it's crazy how quick things change, where LSU was 4 last week. I think Ole Miss was like 15 or something, and now they're jumping up that spot, and then like LSU is at that spot at number 13. Okay, let's move on to Auburn, Texas A&M. You know, Auburn did like nothing in this game, like 0. Like, they were just, their offense was non-existent, and I am just not the biggest fan of Jackson Arnold. I just don't think he's very good. You know, they had 177 total yards against an A&M team that's given up a ton of yards, especially on the ground all year. Like, that's just not good. And like, it wasn't like their defense got dominated, Auburn, but they still gave up a decent amount. And Marcel Reed had a pretty good game. You know, they couldn't even run the ball, which I'm like, dude, against this A&M defense, it's like giving up a ton of run yards in every game they've played. And somehow Auburn just could not do it. You know, credit to Marcel Reed, had a great game outside of that interception. That was a bit of a fluke. And credit him for at least coming back in there and making that stop. I mean, they still ended up scoring a touchdown, but this game was like score-wise really close, but Auburn really never threatened outside of that interception return close. Like they never were really doing anything offensively outside of that field goal as well. And like, Texas A&M kind of just was like playing with their food. They could have probably put it to him more. Le'Veon Moss had a great game, 139 yards and a TD. He was just breaking off runs left and right. A&M right now, undefeated. They are number 6 in the country. So many SEC teams up at the top right now because a lot of them are undefeated still because they haven't played each other yet. They got a real easy stretch here the next couple of weeks. Mississippi State, Florida, and Arkansas. So they should really kind of dominate. And then they've got LSU, Missouri, and Texas. So, I mean, A&M has a shot here to really do something. All they really have to do is probably go and South Carolina and Missouri. I mean, if they go like 2-2 in those hard games, the LSU, Missouri, South Carolina, and Texas games, they're probably in at 10-2. And that means not even getting into the SEC championship game, and they could still get in the playoff. Okay, next game we've got my boy Sig, Signetti just coming into Iowa City, everyone's waving from the hospital and they still get him. Indiana comes back. They were struggling in this game late. Iowa really had their number in the second half. And then Mendoza had an interception and it was looking like they were on the ropes. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to lose this game. And then Mendoza just really put it to him. And that third down conversion by Surratt, it was a slant and he just, boom, he was off for like 45 yards for the touchdown. Go ahead. They were up. And then Gronowski got hurt and their backup comes in and he just really couldn't do much. And that was it. That was all she wrote. Indiana, even Signetti said it coming into this game. He was more worried about this game than the game last week against Illinois. And it proved it. Iowa was game. Their defense kept Indiana in check. There were a lot of fourth down stops that Iowa got and kept Indiana from really doing damage in this game. And it was close. Conversions wise, Indiana was 6 for 15. Iowa's was 6 for 16. It was back and forth. It was a tight score almost the entire way through. Credit to Iowa for staying in this game, but Indiana just proved themselves at the end. And Mendoza, he's still got to be up there for the Heisman at this point because he has a ton of touchdowns. And I think going forward, Indiana's looking like the team to beat in the Big Ten outside of Ohio State. And they're up to number 8. And, they have Penn State and Oregon are their tough games. If they go 1-1, boom, they're in the playoff again and have a chance at the Big Ten championship game. Well, Oregon as well. I don't think Penn State's really up with the top tier right now. I think it's Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana. I think those are the top 3. And a couple of them play each other, but they don't all play each other. So we'll see. I'm excited. Indiana, Oregon, that's a huge game. That's 2 weeks from now. October 11th. God, I would love to go to that game. It'd be such a fun game. 2 great offenses, 2 really good defenses, just 2 like smart coaches that play the game, on another level. And, God, if I had enough money right now, I would definitely go to that game, but definitely can't afford it right now. Okay. Going on to UCLA Northwestern. I'm not going to do much on this game because, UCLA got smoked again. I mean, Northwestern went up 17-0, and then UCLA was able to score a little bit there, field goal here, field goal there, and then a touchdown with a 2-point conversion. It's just a little too late. Again, they just cannot get the offense going early. They really struggled to really like get anything going. This Northwestern team is not good. UCLA should have easily scored 24 points or more. They were just unable to for whatever reason. And it's a shame because this might be their only shot at a win the rest of the year. They have a really tough schedule going. Penn State next week here at the Rose Bowl, which should be interesting. Then they have Michigan State, Maryland, Indiana in Bloomington, Nebraska, Ohio State, Washington, USC. I don't see many opportunities to get a win. Maybe Michigan State and Maryland, but that's it. So I feel bad for everyone. They fired the coach. They're struggling really bad. Nico has just not been what people thought he was going to be. I mean, I thought he was going to do really well. He's just struggled immensely. So let's move on to Tennessee and Mississippi State. This is a back and forth game, but I will say Tennessee got a lot of big plays from their defense that really kind of changed the outcome of this game, because they got an interception return for a touchdown and then a fumbled return for a touchdown. And I don't think outside of that, during the rest of the game, if those plays don't happen, I don't think Tennessee's really even in this game. So they got kind of lucky with some of these plays to really keep them in the game, because offensively they weren't dominating. They did have some big plays passing wise, but they weren't I don't know. Mississippi State was in control of this game for the most part, outside of those two big plays. And, Tennessee still put up yards, but it still felt like Mississippi State was in control. They were converting. They were 8 of 19 on third down, 1 of 2 on fourth down. So they were 9 of 19, over 50%. No, that's less. That's just under. And then, Tennessee was 5 of 14, and then 2 of 2 on fourth down. So they were 7 of 14. So they were at 50%. So I guess there was more conversions, but it just felt like in this game, and as I was keeping tabs of it, I was watching other games, but it just felt like Mississippi State was in control for the most part, but Tennessee just kept making these defensive scores that really kept them in it. And, it just felt like Mississippi State was the better team for most of this game. And then Tennessee just found a way to win. And credit to Tennessee, because, they didn't give up. They scored late there to tie it. And then they get the score in overtime and then get the stop. So Tennessee, they get the win. Mississippi State gets their first loss, but I'm interested to see what Tennessee does the rest of the year, because they have Alabama in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt late, and then Florida as well. So 3 tough games. I think if they can go 1-2 in those games, or 2-1, they could get in the playoffs. So they have to go 2-1. So I don't know. That's tough. I don't see them beating Oklahoma, especially if Mateer is healthy come November. And right now, I don't see them beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa. That's for sure. I don't remember the last time that's happened. It's been a while, at least 20 years. Okay, moving on to Arizona, Iowa State. Iowa State just dominated this game. I mean, it was 29-0 or something like that at one point. What was it? No, 14, 20. 30, no, it was it was 22. Sorry, 22-0. It was 22-0 at one point, and then they got it up to 29-7 and 36-7. It was just, Iowa State was just all over them. They could not stop them. Their defense is just terrible in this game. Arizona is just not a good team this year. They were undefeated in this game coming into this game, but I just don't think they're as good as they are, because they barely beat Kansas State, and Kansas State's had a struggle so far this year. They just didn't look as good as they did last year or 2 years ago, especially on offense. They could not do much. at all against this Iowa State defense. And credit to Iowa State for the really tough defense in this game, because they came to play. And Becht had a good game. He had over 243 yards. He did have an interception late, but that didn't really matter. Yeah, I mean, Iowa State is for real, and like they are 5-0, and they have what is it? BYU coming up in a little bit, Arizona State. So they got and TCU. So they got 3 tough ones left. I mean, if they can go even 1-2 in those games, they have a shot of getting to the playoffs. So, and maybe even the Big 12 championship. So we'll see. And Iowa State, a team that's no one is talking about, undefeated right now. Oregon beats Penn State in the huge game of the day. It was number 3 versus number 6. Oregon on the road in Penn State in Happy Valley. Oregon wins 30-24 in overtime. Dante Moore, best Drew Allar. Drew Allar was 14 of 25, 137 yards, 2 TDs, but a terrible interception at the end to lose it for them. Dante Moore, 248 passing yards, 3 TDs, 29 of 39. Just clutch plays all over the field for Dante. They were down, late in the game. No, not late in the game. On the, in the overtime. And I think they were on 4th down, and they needed the conversion. And Dante gets that conversion. And, just Dante had a huge game the entire day. Just like a lot of people don't know about him because he's relatively new with Oregon, but he was started at UCLA, and just the kid is a stud. He's got a great arm. He's not like super fast, but he's athletic enough to make plays in the run game to make you have to account for him when they're doing RPO stuff. And he just, I don't know, the kid just makes plays. And Penn State's defense was not terrible. It wasn't great either. Jim Knowles kind of didn't poop the bed, but didn't do great here. And Oregon's defense dominated here, only holding them to 276 yards, 4.6 yards per play. Like, they did really good to keep them. They had a 17-3 lead at one point, and it looked like Oregon might be running away with it. And credit to Allar for the huge pass to Ross at like a 35-yard pass that definitely got the score closer. And then they had the late touchdown to tie it. So Allar did navigate the comeback, but he just did not look good for 90% of this game. And that bad throw at the end was really detrimental, and it was like, dude, you can't do something like that. It was 1st down. It's like, don't force that. You have plenty of plays to play. They missed the 2-point conversion. So you had a shot if you scored the touchdown and the 2 points to win the game outright. Oregon's just a better team. I think that's clear from this game. And I don't think Penn State is as good as they probably thought they were. And everyone thought this was their opportunity. This was it. Penn State's going to do it. They're going to get to the playoff, and they're going to win the title. But I just think Allar is suspect. I don't think he's good enough. And I think the defense is decent enough, but that's not going to be good enough against teams that have good offenses, which Oregon obviously does. But Oregon gets the win, and Oregon now is number 2 in the country. So good for them. Okay, moving on to Alabama, Georgia. I watched this game in its entirety. I got to say, it was my hate watch of the week. I hate the Georgia Bulldogs, and I hate Kirby Smart, and I want them to lose every game if they can. And Alabama, just from beginning to end, had the lead. And Georgia, they made of a lot of explosive plays. So there were a lot of chunk plays where they're getting 20, 30, 40-yard gains touchdowns, boom, whatever. But they did not have a great success rate because they were not able to convert on third down nearly at all. In this game, Georgia was 2 of 8 on third down and 0-1 on fourth down. So they were 2 of 9 on conversions, which is a paltry like 40 or 20, 30%. And then Alabama was conversely was 13 of 19 and 0-1 on fourth downs. But so that's like that's at least like 65% there, maybe even 70% there. So huge difference in the game there because Alabama was able to move the ball at will, especially late when they needed to be able to kill the clock, which they did. Georgia had that one bad fumble that led to points for Alabama. And, Alabama was the better team. Like Georgia made some nice plays. There was at least like 6 or 7 huge explosive plays, but outside of that, they really never had sustained drives of short, chunk yards or short plays over the middle or anything or short runs. It was just all huge runs of 20 yards or more, and that was it. That was literally all they could do. They couldn't do anything besides that. And Alabama, Ty Simpson, definitely a Heisman front runner at this point, up there, like top 5 at least. He, had a bad game against FSU, comes into this game and just shows that he's totally deserving of the praise that he's getting. 276 yards, 2 TDs. He looks at command of the offense. They didn't run the ball that great. They still put up decent numbers rushing wise, 117, but just they really were in the passing game, were able to find holes in the Georgia defense and to move the ball pretty consistently all game. They didn't score a ton of points, but they had the ball and they were able to move it and keep the ball out of Georgia's hands. And this game goes to the OC for Alabama. He really did an amazing job of scheming this game up and giving Alabama a chance to win here, which they did, and they looked great. Honestly, this is a team that looks completely different from that that game, week 1 game against FSU. They definitely look like a playoff contender. Their schedule the rest of the way is tough though, because they have Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Missouri, South Carolina, Oklahoma, LSU, and Auburn late. So, I mean, people were talking about tough schedules coming into the year, but I don't think many realize how tough a schedule that Alabama has. And they've got 5 ranked games to go. We'll see if those teams end up ranked by the time they get there, and maybe South Carolina becomes one too. So as far as Georgia goes, they have Ole Miss, they've got Texas, they've got Auburn in a couple weeks, Florida, Georgia Tech. So they've got some tough ones. Mississippi State will be a tough one. We'll see. Georgia's going to get tested the rest of the way. They've got 3 tough games that they'll have to look out for. All right. Last one we got was Ian's G5 game of the week was Ohio Bowling Green. He didn't send me his notes, so I don't know anything about this game. I'm just going to cover it real quick, and then we'll call it a show. Ohio wins 35-20. Stats-wise, I'm not looking for anything crazy. Just seeing Bangura for Ohio ran the ball pretty well, 115 yards, and Mason Williams with 93 yards receiving a TD. But Ohio gets the win. I'll have Ian talk more about it on Wednesday. But that is the show, everyone. You can reach us at haterradio.com for all of our articles. Find us on the socials. Just type in Hater Radio, it comes right up. And Ian's handle is G5_Gibson for Twitter and X. His other stuff I don't remember offhand. But that's the show. Such a tremendous weekend of games. We'll talk to you on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Take care, y'all.